Hey everyone, happy Monday. Welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a really interesting question today from Diana that I'm really excited to read to you guys and get to speak to a little bit. It's a little different than some that we've talked about here, but it's also really common, and it's something I hear in clients a lot, and especially as people are starting to see more about the understanding that I share, kind of what underpins where my responses to these questions come from. This deeper understanding of how our mind works and who we really are, that's kind of beneath all of this. As people start to get a sense of that and get a feel for that, a lot of things begin to shift. Now, a lot of those things that start to shift are very welcomed and wonderful shifts. Like habits start to fall away. Life starts to look less scary, anxiety starts to weaken or go away, moods look different, really great stuff that we're welcoming. And sometimes some of those shifts that happen, it's just change in general, just the fact that shifts are happening and we're seeing ourselves in life a little differently. Sometimes that can be a little uncomfortable or a little off-putting at first, and that's totally normal too. Totally normal, totally temporary. So Diana's question that I'm going to read today is kind of along those lines. So let me read her question. So she says, "Dear Amy, I made a living with my skill of problem solving." So she's a problem solver. "I work as a system consultant, and my job is to analyze problems, find the root cause, and fix it. I told people that this is my talent, and I believe that kind of makes me a good problem solver. I try to apply my skills in my own life, trying to figure out every single thing that comes up. I always need to find the solution or the workaround. Now that I'm learning that's not the case, that I don't need to solve everything or find the workaround or the so-called problems that I believe I have, it feels like my identity as the problem solver is being taken away from me. I've been watching your videos on YouTube and realize it's just the way I'm coping with a part of me that still wants to solve the problems by looking for the solutions in your videos." So she's saying watching the videos is kind of another problem solver sort of strategy. "How do I not get so carried away with this part of me that's always trying to solve something when it's my job professionally to solve things?" So it's an excellent question, Diana, and I love it. And there's a couple pieces to this. So first of all, being a good problem solver and thinking in that way and anticipating, especially in your work, anticipating what might happen and kind of coming in with a solution, those are awesome qualities. Those are great, great things to be good at. I want you on my team. We all want people like that around us, right? It's a wonderful thing. So don't discount that. It is a great skill that you have, and it sounds like you're really great at your job and it served you really well. And that's the thing, like we all have things like that where we have these sort of habits, I guess, or just ways of approaching things or ways of seeing the world that have served us well in the past. And that's what kind of leads them sometimes to become a little sticky, and we get a little attached to them, and we try to apply them, not even consciously, but just in some level, we find ourselves applying them to all kinds of things in life because they have served us well. So when I work with a lot of people with different habits or eating disorders, for example, a lot of these people are really, really high functioning people. We end up finding ourselves in these habits and addictions because we take on so much, and we need something. We look outside of ourselves to cope with something to make us feel better from all that we're taking on. But the point is, really high achieving people who have worked really hard and achieved a lot in life, and it's gotten them somewhere. So it's really a tough thing when we see it that way, when it looks like, oh, the secret to my success is working hard, the secret to my success is being really smart or doing this or that or problem solving. It's really tough to not apply that to all areas of life, and to even just habitually. In some ways, our mind is just going to go there and say, hey, try this. This is what you do every day. So it's common. It's okay. It's something that happens. And just for you, again, Diana, it's a great skill to have. So there's kind of two pieces where this starts to become something that's kind of hurting you, I guess. One is the identity piece. So you say, you know, that it's been kind of your identity, or it's felt like your identity, that this is your talent, this is your thing you're really good at, you're a problem solver. And now you're saying, hey, maybe these things I'm trying to solve and fix aren't really problems the way they seem to be. And maybe a lot of them will solve and fix themselves. Now, I get it. That can it can, from one way of looking at it, kind of feel like you're out of job, or this skill or this talent that you've based this identity around can kind of feel like it's not needed, or it's not so important anymore. And this is kind of what I was mentioning up front, where it's like, when we start to change and we start to see things in a bigger way, there can be some bit of discomfort. So it makes sense, right? You've looked at yourself in this way for so long, and now that's shifting and changing, and it might be a little uncomfortable, a little jarring, like, wait a minute, what's going on, and who am I, and what good is this anyway, and that kind of stuff, and that's okay. But I know you can see this, Diana, that having an identity as a problem solver is also pretty limited. You know, it's kind of a blessing that in some ways you're seeing, oh, this problem solving thing is just a thing I do. It's a thing I happen to be great at, which is wonderful, but it isn't who I am. It never was who you were. It just maybe looked like who you were because that's where you were focused. It's like that movie Room, where the mom and her son are held hostage in this little tiny room, and that's their whole life. The son was born there. All he knows is room. He doesn't know anything other than room. And finally they get broken out of room. They get to escape from room. And both of them are like, do we want this? You know, this is what we know. And room's comfortable. And this, you know, our identities that we make up, yes, we make them up. And yes, they're limiting. And yes, there's so much more in who you are, Diana, than somebody who can solve a problem really quickly or really well. But you know, it's where you've been hanging out for a while mentally. So it is likely to be a little uncomfortable, but just like room, just like whenever we experience change like this in life, we just kind of lean into it. You know, you don't need to put a stake in the ground and say, oh, problem solving is not important anymore. Or, you know, you don't have to make any grand gesture about this. You just kind of can start to see, I wonder how this is actually good news. I wonder how it's good news that there's so much more to me than my ability to solve problems, and get curious about what that is. You know, what is there to you beyond that skill? And I think you're going to really start to like and find a lot of value in what you see. So it's really good news, and it's completely normal and understandable that it's a little uncomfortable at first. So that's kind of the identity piece that you mentioned in here. The other piece is just the habit, you know, and it's like you go to work all day, every day, you're solving problems, right? You're thinking in this problem solving, find the problem, solve it kind of way. So when you get home and you're just in your regular life, that thinking might come with you. And it's funny, just last week, this is so common. Last week I was talking with a doctor. He's retired now, but he said the exact same thing. He said it's so crazy because for years, for 30 some years for him, his whole task, his whole state of mind was go in, look for what's wrong, and put it in a bucket. You know, give it a label, give it a diagnosis, and then treat that diagnosis. I mean, if you really break it down, like that's what he was doing day in and day out. Similar for you, looking for the problem, solving the problem, day in and day out. And he said the same thing. He said, I get it. There's so much more to me than just that, but it's still such a habit. You know, he has a issue in his life, and right away he wants to diagnose it and give it a label and solve it, you know, and he knows that he's seeing, you know, that that's not always the most helpful thing, but you just want to kind of take that as loosely as you can and see that it's okay that your mind goes there. Of course it does. It's just the place your mind's been going for a long time. But as you, Diana, continue to kind of ease into this and see what you're seeing. I love what you said in here, that you're kind of seeing that all these problems maybe aren't really problems, and maybe they don't require solutions. So as you see that more and more, yes, your mind still might jump in and try to call it a problem and find a fix, but you're going to be onto it. You're already onto it. You're going to be onto it more and more as you kind of ease into this. And before you know it, that will just start to shift. You know, you will just see, and I could tell you all day long, but you have to see it in real life, in real time, in your life. You know, oh, maybe this isn't a problem the way I'm thinking it is, or maybe this approach isn't the most helpful thing here. And I have no concern about that, because you had such an insightful question that you wrote here, and the things that you say, you're already seeing this. It's just sort of at that point where there's a little bit of growing pains. You know, there's a little bit of discomfort because it's new and unfamiliar, and your mind still goes back to that same place. But don't worry about that. Don't try to fix that. Just see it as a place your mind goes, you know, just like a direction. Your mind wants to turn you over here, and you're just gonna, oh, no, I don't need to go over there. That's right. This isn't necessarily a problem for me to solve. And this can start to change and loosen up and shift for you faster than you think it will. So thank you for your question, Diana. To anyone out there listening who feels like their identity is sort of threatened in a way by the things they're learning, even if the things that you're learning are super helpful and freeing, it can feel like an identity shift. We see this with people in the Little School of Big Change all the time too, even when those identities are not good ones. So people will come in, for example, as some sort of identity, and again, this is just kind of how they're used to thinking of themselves, as the anxious one, the hypochondriac, you know, the person with chronic health issues, like whatever that might be, the person with this addiction, or I can't get over my habit, all of that stuff. Now, none of that is where they want to be. They're coming into the school because they want to change. But at the same time, all of that kind of becomes their identity. They've been sort of seeing themselves in that way for quite a while. And so it's a little weird when that starts to shift, you know, but again, it's kind of seeing, well, that was never your identity to begin with. It's never who we are. We're so, oh my gosh, you can't even put it into words. So much bigger than anything that we physically do or think or feel, any skill, any talent. I mean, that's minuscule compared to who we really are. And so once you kind of get over, ease into that discomfort and that newness of it, seeing more about who you really are and how you work, all good and so freeing. So you're not alone in this, Diana. So thank you for your question. I hope it's helpful to others. Send your questions, if you have them, to AskAmy@thelittleschoolofbigchange.com. And jump over to that website, littleschoolofbigchange.com, and get yourself on the wait list. If you're at all interested in joining the school, you don't have to commit. It's not opening until April 23rd. But if you think it's something you might be interested in, I really urge you to get on the wait list, because I'm just this week gathering and cooking up all the bonuses, and those are only going to be available to people who are on the wait list. And they're really good. They were really good last time, and I know I talked about how great they were last time. And there's a couple more. We're offering a lot of the same ones plus a few. So that's definitely the place to be if you're considering joining. So you can get on the wait list there. And have a great week. And I'll see you back here next Monday.